Take a person, take a story, take you on a journey. It's your take.
On today's Your Take, I'm joined by a celebrated British comedian who was born in Leeds in the early 1950s and came from a family who were musical and involved in dance. My guest was performing on stage at just 6 and going on to work as a dresser for Yorkshire TV. However, his showbiz break occurred when he appeared on the talent show New Faces in 1986. This led into a high-profile career where he shared the stage with the likes of Cannon and Ball and Danny La Rue, fronted his own primetime television show, You Gotta Be Joking, and performed for the Royal Variety Show. I'm joined today by entertainer, showman, comedian, and performer, Billy Pearce. Thank you. Lovely to see you. And welcome to Your Take.
Thank you very much indeed for inviting me.
Good to see you. I'm liking the background scene as well.
Well, you look like you're sat in your library in a very posh house, and I'm actually sat in my wardrobe with all my. It's actually a big room. It's my office as well,
Sure.
and where you come in through the front door, so it's ideal to hang all your. I've got a big massive all the clothes and the boots and everything else as soon as you walk in, but it's also a big office as well, where I do this sort of thing. But it's always a bit funny. It doesn't look posh, does it? And that's the last thing I want to do is look posh.
It's good to see you. Thanks a lot for joining us for Your Take.
Bless you, mate.
We're gonna obviously take a trip down memory lane and talk about your career as a comedian, performer, and a great entertainer. But I always think it's a nice way to kind of start the whole narrative and your life journey by obviously starting at the very beginning. So you were born in Leeds in 1951.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a bit about what your childhood was like, and just a bit about growing up in Britain in the 1950s and 1960s. What was that like?
Well, my dad died 2 years before I was born, and I was born with a broken arm, hanging on till after the wedding. There was 17 children in my family. My dad didn't know where to stick a twist. No, I'm sorry, I can't help doing the gags. Well, I was born, obviously, a long, long time ago in 1939. And my mum had the biggest dancing school in Leeds, in Yorkshire, really. She had a massive dancing school. James Pearce, she was called. She passed away last November of COVID at 93, bless her. And my dad was like a concert pianist. He could read loads of music, whereas my mum didn't really read music. She could play by ear. So my mum, she could sing and dance and all that. So she was ever talented. So as a child, I was always roped into all the amateur dramatics and operatics. So I did things like Oklahoma and South Pacific and The King and I. And so as you mentioned, I was in The King and I with a Siamese twin with my brother when I was 6 at the Empire Theatre in Leeds, which doesn't exist anymore. It's an arcade. But so I've kind of been brought up in it, really, in that respect, although I didn't realise it at the time. I did all sorts. I worked in theatre and backstage and stuff like that until I went to Butlins as a redcoat. And we used to catch people climbing over the fence and then send them back to finish their holidays. So that's how it all kind of started, and I never had the guts to go on my own for a long time. I was in double acts and stuff, and then gradually I suddenly bit the bullet and realised that I could have all the money instead of half of it.
I wanted to sort of carry on the theme of your parents and this kind of coming from a creative background. What were they like as people, and were you particularly close to them? And do you think they kind of... Do you think
now you're asking me a question that really I wouldn't have answered a few years ago, but now my mother's passed, I have to tell you the truth. My dad was a horrible man. He was very overbearing and Victorian in his attitudes, and he used to say things like, I don't care if you get to be as big as this house, I'll still give you a good hiding and I'll rule you with a rod of iron. And I left home when I was 14 and I went to live with my grandma.
Sure.
One of the reasons my grandma, she was lovely, my grandma, or my nana, as I used to call her. But my mum was a much more, where I think I get a lot of my personality from. She don't want to have any arguments and all that. So she always went out and taught other people's kids and all that. So I never saw much of my mum. I didn't see much of her. And often you find that with show busy parents, that they don't have time for the kids really. And so it was a bit like that. And it wasn't until later on in life that my mum, I did go to dancing school and all that to be near my mum. So I took my ballet exams and stuff like that when I was a kid, when I was 11. But they dressed me up in tights and stuff and, you know. Well, she actually put me in green fishnet tights and I looked like a bag of sprouts. She said, well, when I first took dancing lessons, I came on in leaps and bounds. She said, can you dance around on your toes? I said, get somebody taller. You know those Cossack dancers? I worked with them once and I thought for all the money that they got that night, they could have danced standing up. But anyway, so, you know, I was kind of brought up in that atmosphere.
Sure.
And it became, after doing lots of different jobs, I found that I could entertain people a little bit. I wanted to do it, but I didn't have the guts to do it. It took me a long time to have the guts to do it.
Before we talk about your big breakthrough as an entertainer, I wanted to come on to some of those kind of early jobs you did, because initially you were an apprentice cutting glass moulds in a factory. Then you went on to move to Iceland for a brief period.
You've done your own work, haven't you? Blimey. You know, but you know it better than I do. I would never have mentioned all that.
So you worked on on the fish docks at one time, and I just want to kind of find out the life lessons you kind of learned from those experiences and what kind of made you want to pursue other interests outside of those jobs, because I take it, you know, working in a factory, that wasn't what you had, your heart and soul.
No.
That wasn't your kind of motivation in life, what you wanted to do. So
I didn't know what I wanted to do though. And that job, when I worked in engineering, for instance, cutting glass bottle molds for British United Glass, before the days of computers, somebody had to cut the concave side of the glass bottle mold. So say, for instance, the analogy would be the old-fashioned Coca-Cola bottles with Coca-Cola raised up on the outside of the bottle. Somebody cut that into a mold and it's mirror. So you have to do it, and it's got to be precise, but done with a hammer and chisel. Not nowadays like you can with a computer. So I was learning to do it with a hammer and chisel, basically. All them years ago. It was a good job that was created for me by one of the parents who was a managing director of British United Glass. And he literally created me this job, which when I left, it was awful because it seemed like I was ungrateful. But I just knew it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
How did you end up in Iceland, going from...
Well, I got in a motorbike crash. I was actually jumping 14 motorbikes in a double-decker bus and somebody rang the bell. And I finished up with 2/3 of my liver missing and my spleen gone and my kidneys damaged, and my ribs went through my lungs and all that. So I had collapsed lungs and it was just awful. It was a miracle I survived. And after that, I couldn't settle really, you know, because the surgeon, you couldn't write all this, but the surgeon who looks after me, he used to be Marshal Tito's surgeon in Yugoslavia when the days of the war and all that, and the days of Yugoslavia. And he became his art surgeon, and he had a property. And to cut a long story short, he let me go and stay in his property on an island in the Adriatic called Korčula. So I went and stayed there. And when I came back to engineering, I couldn't settle. I'd seen another side of life. I'd never been away from home. And then, so I left the engineering apprenticeship and I worked in a sheet metal factory because I'd fallen in love when I was about 17 or 18 with this beautiful Icelandic girl. And when her parents found out that we were serious and things were going on that perhaps we shouldn't have been going on, they sent her got her straight back to Iceland and said, if he really loves you, he'll come over. And I did. And so I saved all my money up and I went and stayed with her for 2 or 3 months. And I worked on the fish thing. And but it didn't work out at all. And I came back to England and started carrying on where I'd left off as a stagehand and all that. And I got a job at YTV, which you mentioned, as a dresser and all that. And I did Les, you know, the YTV program, Says Les, it used to be called.
Sure.
And things like that. Les Dawson was great with me. I'd worked with him as a stagehand in pantomime. And he was, in them days, the stars didn't talk to the stagehands. They were all a little bit, you know, another level. And the stars didn't mix with the stagehands. But Les was one of the nice people. And I got to know him over the years, and I finished up doing Blankety Blank and things like that with him. And he, bless him, he remembered me, which was a wonder. And now I'm mates with his wife, Tracy, and his daughter, Charlotte. And I've also got a picture that I bid at an auction of them doing Sissy and Ada. It's an oil painting. I paid a lot of money for it at the time when I had money. I haven't got any money now.
I want to move on to the 1980s.
I do, I know. I've had enough of this, haven't you?
I want to move on to the 1980s because it's just kind of the key decade for you when you break into the entertainment and comedy industry.
Mm.
You appeared on television, New Faces.
Yes.
You reached the final of that particular talent show. What are your kind of memories from that particular program? And do you think that was kind of the stepping stone to propel you into the as an entertainer?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I did actually go on Opportunity Knocks in 1972 in a double act where we sang and tap dance and played guitar at the same time to the Loving Spoonful. What a day for a daydream. We did that. But so when I started in the clubs, I always say it was 1986 when I went on New Faces. So it took me like 16 years to be a new face. Mm. But I got on by the skin of my teeth because somebody had dropped out and I went and did an audition. And I had a letter saying I hadn't got through. But then something must have happened because I had a phone call and they asked me to go on that week. Somebody had dropped out. So I went and did an audition, first of all, at the Hippodrome. And I got on by the skin of my teeth. And I won the heat. It was amazing. I got the highest votes. And then, so that meant me going to the finals of New Face in 1986, and where I took an absolute nosedive. It was completely, you know, I always say it took 12 acts to beat me. Right? So every act beat me. And I said, like, I got 8 months' work cancelled, you know, because, you know, as soon as they see you on there. Normally, when you go on telly, your bookings go up. But if it's bad, you know, you get all your bookings cancelled. So it was a very horrible time, really, the finals night. I knew at the time that I wasn't going to win. I knew that, in my opinion now, I can say it now, all these years later, but I think it was a bit of a fiddle out. It was a bit fixed. And I got on by the skin of my teeth, and the bloke that was going to win it had to win it. So, but as it happened, it did me a favour not winning because I'd been noticed on there and I got taken on by a big London agency. And suddenly from that, I was, as you mentioned the word propelled, it was a bit propelled at the time because I'd only done really working men's clubs, although I'd had a lot of experience in theatre because of my mum and my connections with theatre and all that. So it wasn't a hops, you know, massive leap for me to, where a lot of club acts found it difficult to go into a theatre. For me, I'd had experience of that, so somehow it kicked in. So I found myself doing a summer season with Danny La Rue all of a sudden. It was quite big at the time, and touring, as you mentioned, with Cannonball and people like that, which I didn't have to do the time that I used to have to do. I mean, I'd got a wealth of material. I used to have to do 3 half-an-hour spots and then 2 45s in the clubs, and I was doing over 2 hours of material in the workmen's clubs. So to find 15 or 20 minutes to close the first half in somebody's show, I didn't find that difficult. Like a lot of people in those days, you know, the Freddie Stars and all them that have been around a long, long time and learnt the trade in the clubs. You know, if you could make that leap into the larger areas of the theatres and the big stages and things like that, then you could be, you know, quite successful at it, really. Is that enough? It's gone very quiet.
For a young comedian, for a young comedian learning their ropes and performing in the working man's clubs, is that quite a daunting experience, kind of playing to different audiences? And I also wanted to ask you, you mentioned working with the likes of Danny La Rue and Cannonball, these great names during the 80s. Was there kind of would you say a competitive rivalry, or did you all kind of get on and kind of all support one another? What was that kind of atmosphere like?
Well, as a support act, you've got to have respect for the top of the bill. And you've got to, you know, in an old-fashioned sense, where I come from, you know, I'm old school. I come from an old-fashioned world. So I've learnt my theatre etiquette and all that. Although I've never, like some comedians would tailor their act to suit the top of the bill. So, you know, sometimes the top of the bill won't like you being funny or too funny. So they tone it down. I've never been able to do that. I'm not that kind of person. I have to go out there and absolutely give it my best. So a lot of comedy, top of the bills, won't have people like me, as I wouldn't either, as a top of the bill, want a comedian who's too good or works like me, or, you know, because they're more of a threat. It's easy to be a support act, and it's more difficult to be top of the bill. I've never had. I've always been respectful to the people who I've been working with, and generally, what you put in, you get out. So when I worked with Danny La Rue, I made sure that he knew that I wasn't going to run over my time. You know, so if it's going well, you don't do suddenly start doing too. I had 18 minutes, I think. And if they're laughing, you have to cut stuff out to make your time up. And if they're not laughing, you put a couple of gags in to make the time up. So I was always within 30 seconds of 18 minutes. So, you know, the bloke in the wings had a stopwatch. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, because otherwise you'd upset the top of the bill, because what you're doing by running over is taking the time off their act at the end of the night. As I've learned over the years, that's people go out there and they're enjoying themselves and they forget what time it is. You know, instead of doing 15 minutes, they're doing 25, which takes 10 minutes off your act at the end of the night. So it's easy to be second on the bill.
Even as an experienced comedian and playing so many gigs, you know, stand-up concerts in front of lots of audience, is there almost like a trepidation at times that you think, what if I don't make the audience laugh? What if I get a bad reaction? Is there always, are you always on tender?
All the time, love, honestly. All the time. No, mate, that is my fear. I hope you don't mind me swearing, but somebody once asked me that question, and I said, I spend my whole life shitting myself and being relieved. I shit myself going to work, and I'm relieved when I drive home. Because I'm panic-stricken when I go to work, because you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm relieved when in fact, I'll be honest with you, just before lockdown, right, this is the gospel, I'm being totally honest, which I am. Before lockdown, I did this massive club. I better not mention the name. It's over on the East Coast, and it's near Skegness, and it's 3 times bigger than Batley Variety Club and all that. And I've done it for years, surrounded by caravans and all that. It's a lovely club. And on lockdown, it was the opening night of the season, and it was packed, 2,500 people and kids running about and all that. I managed to do an hour, but I did struggle. And so last Saturday, I was booked back to go back, and it was, and I wanted to bury the. I've only done a couple of gigs, and I really wanted to go back. Now, like I say, I spend my life worried, and so I goes back there. I lasted 20 minutes. Now, it don't happen to me often, and in all my 50 years of going, I could probably count them, the really bad ones, you know, one hand really.
Sure.
I have been booed off walking on. And one night there was a man on before me, and he was so bad, they were still booing him while I were on. And so the one thing about it is it does stop you getting big-headed. You know, because it stopped, you know, I'd hold my hands up, it was my fault, you know, because sometimes it can be the timing of when they put you on. Do you know what I mean? That can go wrong. So they're all drunk and they're putting you on at 11 o'clock and they've been drinking to 7 or something. Then you're in for a tough time, aren't you? And if you look out and it's all staggered ends and things like that, then...
I always think in the creative profession, you know, musician, actors, I always feel like as a musician, you can probably make a mistake on stage and be covered up by the other band members. You know, there's always a way of kind of covering up a mistake or an error or...
Yes.
But I always feel like a comedian, you're pretty much up there on your own. You're kind of just looking out to an audience, which you presumably can't see because you've got light shining bright at your eyes and you see your outlines.
I don't like that.
And I kind of think it must be such a hard profession because it's all about timing and, you know, and the audience might not necessarily get your humor and different generations laugh at different things.
Absolutely, yeah.
Times change, you know, especially now where things have become a lot more PC. But I always feel it must be such a difficult profession, and also to kind of stay relevant as well.
Yes.
And keep changing your act from kind of, yeah.
Well, what you've just said is absolutely right. I mean, as a comedian, you're bearing your soul, really, and you're out there on your own and you're talking to the audience. And that is part of being a comedian. It's part of everybody's performance, obviously, is involving the audience. But for a singer, you know, the times I've been on there and I think I wish I was a singer, because I could sing my way through it, a song after a song after a song. But when you're doing comedy and you're expecting people to laugh and join in and be part of the act, then it's a different ballgame altogether. It's a much harder thing to do than to be part. I don't mean this to sound patronising or whatever, but when you're out there on your own, as you've just said earlier on, it's a different ballgame to singing in a band or even being in a double act or a trio. You've got your other mates to fall back on. And if you're not doing comedy, it's not that the audience reaction, you can carry on. I mean, whereas obviously with comedy, you need that. If you're not getting it back from them, it's very, very difficult. I don't normally have problems, otherwise I wouldn't be here talking to you after all these years. It's, you know, I can't really complain about what's happened to me. But the wonderful thing about doing comedy is, on the flip side of that, which we've been talking more about the bad side of it, is the wonderful feeling that you get when you've got the whole room eating out the palm of your hand, and it's like mass hypnosis, and they're hanging on every word. It's the most fantastic feeling. A drug. It's like a drug, and you want more of it. That's what you aim for. Yeah, things like which I had for a long time. Which I used to get in theatres when I used to do the big venues. It was the Mexican laugh, which not many people get the Mexican laugh. That, you know, when the football stadium, when they all go like that around the stadium, the Mexican wave. Well, the Mexican laugh is when everybody goes like that and nods forward all at the same, and it goes down in a wave. I haven't had one of them for a while, and I definitely didn't get one of them last Saturday night.
You've done so many things throughout your career, from stand-up comedy to fronting your own television show, the Royal Variety performances. You've done game shows, chat shows you mentioned as well. What would you say is the discipline you enjoy the most, and where is your favorite place to perform if you got a favorite venue?
Well, first of all, the discipline most. Because I was brought up by my mum and the musical side of it, and learned to do a bit of dancing. And I used to tap dance and all that in my act. I was a good tapper, to be honest. I had terrible problems with motorbikes, and I broke my foot in half. So it's clickety thud now. But so I've been in a couple of musicals, and I've been able to sing and dance and act and do serious parts, which often people don't think of you like that because you're a comedian. So I've been able to use all my talents, and I've enjoyed that side of it. As well as me stand-up, there's a good side to that. As I mentioned earlier on, the walking out there and making everybody laugh is wonderful. Me singing side of it, I've enjoyed that. I play different instruments, so I've got a little recording studio in my house, and I've recorded various songs and stuff, and I've had a couple of CDs out and things like that in the past. I've forgotten what the question is really, but I suppose I'm a jack of all trades and master of none in some respects, but I can put my hand to pretty much anything. And I like venue-wise, I've had some brilliant times at the Blackpool Grand Theatre. I've did 20 years there in summer seasons and things. And I'd have to mention the Alhambra, which I've done 21 pantomimes there. And that is a very big theatre. And, once again, I have a big following there, so they come to see me. I'm a bit worried about this year's panto because all we get is the bones of it, and I've got to start trying to make it funny. I've been lucky, very, very lucky, but you've got to make them laugh. That's the main thing, and which I have been able to do, and to survive that long. And those wonder. I mean, the Alhambra is just a beautiful theatre. I mean, it's stunning. And I've been very lucky to be able to call that theatre my own, for the last 20 years, every couple of months over Christmas. And these brilliant, and the kids sounded once again, the sound of the laughter and all that. I just love it. I thrive on it. It make me, I've done lots of different things, but those are the things that I would probably spring to mind. The lovely summer seasons that we used to do. We used to do Rock with Laughter at Blackpool, and I worked with them all. Like when Jerry and the Pacemakers were #1 again with You'll Never Walk Alone. I was on summer season in Blackpool, and we did a finale to that. So I was stood next to Jerry Marsden with everybody singing, when you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and all that. Lovely times with Linda Lusat, John Inman. I'm free. These actors, John Chalice out of Fools and Horses.
Yeah.
He's a mate of mine. He's stayed at my house a few times, and my gardener nearly had a heart attack one day when he walked out of the house, and it was John Chalice in his battered old Land Rover he had, like a farmer's Land Rover, one of them. Not a posh one, like we're just an old knackered, He's a lovely man. That's what I mean. You meet these people. I would never have met all these lovely people, not doing clubs, but certainly from pantomime, I've had the chance to work with some fantastic people. Really, people you'd never ever meet from my lowly life background would never hope to meet or work with,
I'd imagine one of the pinnacles of any comedian entertainer's career is to have their own television show, which happened in 1989 with a series called You Gotta Be Joking.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, your highlights from the show, and how did the program sort of come about, and how long did it run for?
Well, it wasn't a successful show for a start off. It got commissioned for 2 months. We did it for 2 months, and it was it's supposed to be like Rowan and Martin's Lapping, and it was me and 4 other people. Originally, it was going to be me and Shane Ritchie, because we were both at the same level at that time.
Sure.
And it was going to be me and him. And then they put Maddie Cryer, George Marshall, and another girl who went going to Australia. Sorry, I'm getting old. I'm a pensioner. And so it was all this fast-moving comedy and all that. And I struggled to write the material. It had to be a new show every week. So you had to start writing. So I had loads of material. But I was under pressure, and I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. And at the time, we'd kind of missed the boat. Comedy had moved on to a different level, so we knew it wasn't going to get recommissioned or anything like that. So it was kind of, you say I had my own show, but I didn't really. I mean, I was featured in it very much so, but it wasn't my show. There was other people in it. And it wasn't, it was good, don't get me wrong. There's still stuff on YouTube from it, and stuff that I've written, all that, you know. I saw one other day about me being, it was all about, I was called a fertilizer, but I was shaped like a cone. They made me an outfit with a cone. So I was like a traffic cone. So I'd gone round multiplying all the traffic cones that you see everywhere. I was the main person, the cause of it all.
Okay.
And it was all to do with cones and getting run over and all that sort of thing. And Arthur Conan Doyle, Arthur Conan and Doyle, all that sort of stuff. We're all in it. So I enjoyed it. I mean, I was very creative at the time. So I wrote loads of stuff that they didn't use a lot of it. In fact, they handicapped me. So it wasn't a particularly happy time for me. I was never comfortable doing television, to be honest with you. It weren't my, I'm not that ambitious, kill to get on type at all. I'm far from it. I'm much more introverted, really, than perhaps my personality says. And I've never been hungry to be a superstar or all like that, like a lot of other people. When people say to me, "What how would I become you? How do I get to do what you've done?" I say, well, first of all, you got to want to do it, because if you don't really want to do it, somebody stood behind you that really wants to do it, and they'll kill their own mother to do, or they break your arms and your legs to do what you want to do. Because it's true. People want to get on, but I've never been that hungry and ambitious. It's somehow, I've just been lucky and I've breezed along, and it's just happened for me. You've got to be good at what you do, otherwise you won't be able to do that.
Interestingly, I wanted to come on to, you said about writing material.
Yeah.
Where'd you kind of get the main source of inspiration for your stories you tell on stage, your kind of gags, the sketches, the jokes? Do they come from sort of meeting people day to day, or life experiences?
Everything.
Yeah.
For me, it's everything. And I tend to write everything down. So if I hear somebody say something funny, like I heard somebody say to people talking in the gents and in the toilet, and he said, the bloke walking out said, "You're a right pair, you three, if I ever did hear one." So that, sticks in my mind. I might think, well, I could use that maybe sometime. So it's little sayings like that. But gags, I'm a minefield of gags. There's only Bobby Davro, I think, knows more gags than me. So I mix and match everything. So somebody might tell me a joke in a pub, or I might hear it, or something that somebody says on the radio, or something funny that tickles me, and I write it down, or I've got a thing on my phone and I put it on my phone, and then later on I go back, and I've also created a database for comedy, and there's 28,000 pages at the moment. I haven't done much work on it recently.
Oh wow, that's incredible.
Well, it's all, a lot of it's categorized, but you can search with a name as well, like you can do in any word search and all that. So it uses that kind of thing. So if you put snake in it or giraffe, it'll find every sentence or joke that's got the word giraffe in it.
Wow.
So you can, narrow it and then take that gag and put that in the thing and then slot it all in. And then when you've got loads of them, then you delete loads of them. And then you put the 3 or 4 of them together and, you've all of a sudden, and then change it round a bit. So that's with gags. But like I say, there's other things that happen. There's funny stories that you hear and, I was trying to think of things that other people aren't doing. That's the main thing. And I do a lot of old stuff in my act, but there's a lot of new stuff as well. But I don't care so long as it's funny.
During our conversation, we've mentioned so many names, and at the beginning you mentioned Les Dawson as a mentor to you in your sort of early days when you're starting out. But if you had to name the comedians who have inspired you the most, but also any comedians today that are working that you draw any inspiration from, and when you watch you think, I like what they're doing, who kind of comes to mind?
Well, straight away I'd say Jason Manford, because I nearly did a pantomime with him last Christmas. And I've never really done my homework on Jason Manford at all. It didn't really appeal to me. But when I found out I was going to be working with him, I looked at his stuff and I liked him a lot. But not only that, it never happened because of COVID. I got to the night before rehearsals and booked a flat in Manchester for a month. And the next morning it was all cancelled. So I literally slept in this flat for one night and drove home. So I never actually met him face to face. But my mum passed away with COVID in November, and lots of different things happened. And he emailed me and was very, very kind. And he was a man who was tremendously busy and all that. And I just loved him and admired him for that. And I thought he was going to be a very generous person. He's not going to be stuck up himself and, didn't want me to be funny and all that. I'm happy to work with people, but, but he seemed like a lovely man. Then I've got to think now, when I was growing up, as a little kid, I'd watch George Formby in his films, Norman Wisdom, Tommy Cooper, Norman Vaughan, Morecambe and Wise, Little and Large. Freddie Starr was massive at the time and a genius when he was on form. Who else can I think of? And the guy who's gone out my blooming brain, and I'm a right big fan of his, just because I'm old. And I work with his dad, believe it or not, but he's retired now. He's come out of it, and he swore a lot and sweated a lot. What's his name? He was fantastic, and I don't blame him for I admire him for what he's done. He's come out of it and retired. So how easy to forget somebody. I can't believe I've done that. So those kinds of people, those are growing up. I think when the new wave of comedy come in, with once again, all the bloody names have gone, and we all got kicked out. I was never a big star, so it didn't really matter to me so much. But for a lot of other people, they were on telly a lot regularly, and the new, I think it was Alan Yentob at the BBC that kicked everybody out and started the Ben Eltons and, that never appealed to me. But I did like the young ones and stuff like that, which, was the start of people like me, Jimmy Tarbuck and the Bobby Davros and all that getting kind of moved, and Cannonball and all those people were all moved to one side. But it didn't affect me that much because I was never that big, you know, for it to, you know, I always carried on working. So, and it never bothered me because I wasn't too happy doing telly anyway.
You've had a long career, and obviously you must have seen immense change, huge changes in the time you've been working as an entertainer.
Yeah.
Do you think for like young comedians now, or people who want to work in sort of variety and stage, do you think it's harder now than ever? Or do you think in some ways it's easier because maybe there's more accessibility, maybe there's more training? What's your kind of take on that?
First of all, I've never really thought myself as being a comedian. I've always been like a comedy entertainer and all that. So I don't put myself in the league of them people. But I think nowadays, what I find very, very, you have to analyse everything that you're doing to make sure that you're not upsetting or offending anybody. So finding the material, unless you're in a kind of in that business of being offensive, you know, obviously you've got to be very, very careful of the material that you use, perhaps more so than when I was first starting out all those years ago. When I look back at the material that people used to use, I mean, it's just, you know, you can't believe that people said things like that nowadays. You know, so it's that side of it. I think the other thing is, I think because of reality television has meant the stars sitting at home watching the audience on the telly. So the stars are now the audience, the members of the public. And also what's happened is they don't have the, this is going to sound like I'm being bitter and all that, which I'm not. What I find now is they don't have the respect that they used to have when you're on the stage, because they're encouraged now to shout out. And it's the same in boxing matches and rugby matches and things like that. People don't behave. They used to go and watch boxing in the dicky board, didn't they? And all that, and sit there and behave. Well, like theatre now, nobody gets dressed up even to go to a theatre, whereas they used to get dressed up. I've got a video of me in a working men's club in 1983 on a Saturday night in Doncaster, one of the first videos, cameras that ever come out, like a big, massive thing. And all the men have got shirts and ties on, and the women all dressed up with their hair done. And they're the women are drinking Lager, and the men are having pints, and there's ashtrays full of cigarettes, and there's a haze going around the room. But they've come out and they've got dressed up. It's Saturday night. They've come out to be entertained, whereas nowadays, I don't think that happens quite so much as...
I wanted to ask your take on one thing in particular, and you kind of mentioned it in this answer. You said about how times change, fashions, trends, how people's attitudes evolve. Onto comedy, we're kind of living in times now where people may be more easily offended by certain jokes or comments that are made on television or in the media. And I was just going to ask your opinion on, we had an instance recently where the comedian Chubby Brown was supposed to be playing a gig in, I think it was Sheffield, and they decided to pull the gig because Sheffield, I think City Council didn't want him to perform because they felt his material was inappropriate.
Yes.
Do you think that's a dangerous thing, silencing kind of, you know,
it's free speech, isn't it?
Yeah. I just wanted to hear...
Is he inciting hatred? For me, listen, Chubby, I've known Chubby for donkey's years, and off stage he's a gentleman, and I can't say any of it. But I wouldn't do some of the stuff that it wouldn't suit me to do that. And obviously people buy a ticket to go and see him. There's an audience to see him. So who is it to decide what that audience can watch and what they can't watch? We're supposed to have free speech. If he's inciting hatred and all that, I mean, listen, I don't agree. I mean, sometimes some of the things, not just him, but other comedians say, it makes my toes curl and my teeth itch, you know, because I just think, oh, poor, you know, even though it can make me laugh, I still wouldn't do it myself.
Sure.
But, you know, there's room for everybody in this business. It's like Bernard Manning. You know, he used to say, I take the mickey out of everybody. Nobody is safe from me. So he'll take the mickey out of every ethnic, you know, the Irish, the Scottish, you know, the Jews, the Asians, you know, he'll pick on everybody. And so nobody's safe. So that justifies. But, you know, when it's racially, when it sounds racist and all that, then I don't agree with that, because there's no room for that these days. And that's why, as a comedian, you've got to be almost doubly careful these days. I think if you're treading on shaky ground a lot of the time, it's difficult to find stuff that's funny, because a lot of comedy is taking the mickey out of other people. Or it used to be the Irish being thick, or the Scottish being tight, or your mother-in-law, or you know, it was always that kind of element to it. Whereas now that's called stereotyping, and you're not allowed to do that. And you know, it's even worse when you're on the telly. I mean, I can remember you weren't allowed to mention anything like trains crashing or ships sinking or aeroplanes crashing in case something happened. It kind of, it does narrow it down a bit when, you know, you've got to draw a line through a load of your stuff. I can't remember what the question was. A lot of material that other people do, it wouldn't suit me. And I do an adult show, which I kind of don't take any prisoners, really, as well as my family show and pantomimes to survive. I do a bit of everything. But there's a lot of stuff in my adult show which I enjoy doing, because I can pretty much say what I like. And I enjoy that side of it. I don't F and blind. I'm not Chubby Brown. I don't like that. But not there's anything wrong with Chubs that sounds awful, or any person that uses, you know, that kind of adult show. I try to be. My idea is not to upset anybody, just make them laugh and have a good night. And as they're walking out, they've had a good laugh. They've forgotten the problems for a bit. You know, that's the whole point for me. As a comedian.
You've mentioned to me the great opportunities you've had, and we've mentioned the names and some of the projects you've worked on. You even did some acting on Heartbeat. You were in the musical Boogie Nights, and you've spoken about some of the things you've tried to do, different things in your career that you've enjoyed. Yes. But the question I was going to ask you, is there anyone you haven't worked with that you'd love to work with? And is there a particular area that you've not ventured in that you think, I really would like to do that at some stage, you know, before it's too late?
Who would I like to work with? Well, I think I would have loved to have worked with Jason Manford, as I mentioned him earlier on. I was really looking forward to that, because I kind of felt that I knew him a bit, and I watched him and studied him. And also that I knew that he was a generous performer, as opposed to, as I mentioned earlier on, just looking after his own corner. And, you know, I was looking forward to working with him as a modern performer, and me being the old school bloke. I think it would have been a right good mix, and we would have enjoyed. It wouldn't have been my fault if he hadn't enjoyed working with me. Because, you know, I like it to work, and I know he likes it to work. So I would have loved to have worked with him. If I could work with, you know, like I loved him, who would I work with now? Right, from now on, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that I'd like to do. We've been trying to work out who I want to do pantomime with this year and who would fit in. And it's difficult to think of people. I've kind of worked with the best of them and I've no idea really now. We've got Dr. Raj off the telly who's going to be in the pantomime with me.
Yeah, I know the guy you mean. Yeah, I think he was on Strictly Come Dancing.
That's him, yeah.
Yeah, I know the guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it seems like I've sort of Googled him and everything like you do. And he seems like I'm YouTubed him and all that. So I'm looking forward to seeing him and working with him. And what else can I say? The lady's, I forgot what her name is now, but she's been in the West End and all that, was going to be playing Carib Boss. So I'm looking forward to working with her. So it's all about that, really. I think who I'd like to work with, in the future, I have no idea, really. I'd have to sit and think about that. You've caught me on the hop with that one.
You've obviously done so much stage and television as well. Have you ever fancied kind of working on a feature film? Is that something you think, I wouldn't mind giving that a go,
Well, yeah, of course, but nobody... first of all, I'd have to have an agent, which I haven't got. Well, I have actually got an international agent. That means I'm out to work all over the world. I started at the bottom and I like it here. I started off with nothing and I've still got most of it left. I've got 70 hobbies, 69 of fishing. But I don't know about the future side of it. I think that them days are kind of over, but I would like to work with anybody that's really great and talented and lovely to work with. I mean, like other Christmas, I was with Beethoven out of Steps, and she was wonderful. And Paul Chuckle Brothers, the people I've worked with, I can't pick anybody better, really. I've been so lucky with them all.
Billy Pearce, this is the part of the interview we ask all our guests.
Well, you tell me to go away.
No, not at all. No, I love these answers. I love asking these questions. My favourite parts. We ask some quick fire questions just to wrap up the interview.
I've had a brandy while I'm talking to you. You know that, don't you?
Have you? I've just been on the water. It's like vodka. Maybe later. These are some quick fire questions just to kind of find out things you like, things you don't like, and so on. Okay, first of all, what would you say is your favourite pastime?
Right now, at this moment in time, what I've been doing this afternoon, the sun's been shining, and I've been walking around the garden. I've got quite a big lawn at the back, and I've got one of them lawnmowers that's robotic.
Okay.
Right. Like a vacuum that you get for your house, it's a robot.
Yeah, I know.
Right. So I've got one of them for my garden. It cuts my lawn. Right. So I walk around my lawn with a glass of brandy when the sun's shining. Bless you. And I quite enjoy that. But I don't have many hobbies. I used to, I joined a gun club and I had a 12-bore shotgun for a bit. But I got rid of that after Dunblane. And then I had a 44-foot sailing yacht and I learned to sail and sail around the Adriatic all on my own for 2 or 3 years. And I sold that. And then I like my music. I like to play my music, and I've been working on a ukulele medley for my act. Something where I don't need the backing, I can just play the uke and sing. Because it's so different to everybody else is doing. So that side of it. So, and I'm always working on the act, doing a bit of stuff here, there and everywhere and cutting it and moving it about and trying to own it.
Sure.
I forgot what the question is, to be honest.
From pastime, my next one is, what is your favourite film and why?
When I was a little kid, it was Swiss Family Robinson, and I went to see that about 8 times when I was only little. And then I've loved Shawshank Redemption. That, I've watched that a couple of times. After that, I can't think. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest a long, long time ago. Left a lasting impression on me.
Jack Nicholson at his very best, really good choice. And I love the Shawshank Redemption as well. Who would you say is your favourite novelist?
Oh, well, I've read loads of Stephen King stuff. It takes me out of the, you know. After that, I can't think. I don't really read much, to be honest. I should do. I'm ashamed to say it. I don't really read, even on my holidays. I had one of those Kindles, and I left it in a Premier Inn hotel room, and I've never had one since. And I used to like that, reading my book. I'll have to get another one, to be honest, because I have trouble sleeping.
If you could have had a different profession, what would it have been? What else would you have liked to have done other than what you do now?
I'd probably, something that nobody's actually thought of in this country, I'd get one of those pigs from France and go looking for truffles in England, because there's nobody actually doing that over here. And I think I could make a living out of finding truffles. It's just you need to find the right pig, apparently.
Who would you say is your greatest inspiration in life?
Oh God, the greatest. Well, I don't know. I mean, probably. If you mean work-wise, once again, I've met loads of people. I mean, I've always been a massive fan of the Beatles, you know, and I kind of grew up with the Beatles. And the closest I've got was meeting George Martin on a royal show, and my knees wobbled and everything. And but also I did pantomime with Victor Spinetti, who worked a lot with the Beatles, and he was such a wonderful man. That, you know, those kind of days, the Beatles and Roy Orbison, Shirley Bassey, you know, the Everly brothers. One drank heavily and the other smoked heavily. You know, I worked with them, those people a lot, and they were, you know, Jean Pitney, she was good, wasn't she? And you know, the old stars. I've forgotten what the question is, but you know, I've enjoyed working with them.
I love. I'm a huge Beatles fan, so great inspiration. I totally agree with you there.
Gary Barlow. When I did Children's Royal, sorry to butt in, it turned out when I did the Children's Royal Variety Show with the Take That, when they all walked in, Gary Barlow came straight up to me and asked me, he said, "Billy, how are you doing?" I couldn't believe it. And I went, so he said, "Are you still doing So-and-so, So-and-so in your act? Do you still do Only Make Believe? Do you still do Only You? Do you still do this?" And he went through my act. And I went, "How do you know that?" He said, "I played for you at the Willows in Salford."
Oh, wow.
And when it all worked out, he was 16 years old, and the resident keyboard player was off, and they said, "There's a lad going to play for you tonight." I was only 16, and my heart sunk because, you know, playing live my music, you only get a chance to talk through in the dressing room. So this young lad come in, you know, a kid, and I went through my music with him, and he played great for me. And it turned out it was him, it was Gary Barlow who played for me, and he remembered me and my act and everything. You know, I always say be nice to people on the way up, because you never know who you're going to meet on the way down. If I'd have been horrible to him, he'd have been horrible to me, wouldn't it?
Yeah, very true. Next one, do you read a newspaper? And if so, which one?
No, I'm not I'm an avid news person. I watch the news all the time. And I used to have what they call it on the telly. It used to be a thing that you could press and get the news. It was like in computer writing, but you can't.
Oh, yeah, CFAX, the old teletext.
Yeah, can't like a CFAX thing. Yeah. You can't do. So I used to look at that all the time, but I'm not a newspaper person. Although I did go in, I said to a newsagent the other day, I said, "I want to buy a paper." And he said, "Do you want today's paper or do you want tomorrow's paper?" I said, "I'll have tomorrow's paper." He said, "Come back tomorrow." Well, anyway, so I'm not a newspaper person at all, really. I'm pretty hopeless, actually, to be honest. I'm not interested in anything.
What would you say is your favourite food?
Oh, God. It'd be easy to say what I don't eat, which would be tripe and onions, you know, all that kind of stuff, awful stuff. But we like a lot of curry. I like my roast dinners, just normal. I'm not a fatty eater, really. Although if I go out to a restaurant, I'm always the unlucky person that gets a stone or a bone or a hair or in my dinner. I'm always it's uncanny. Honestly, it really is. When I go out to eat, the stuff that I find in my dinners, it's almost like I'm looking for it. My wife thinks I'm putting stuff in my dinner too. I'm not, of course. It's the last thing I want.
I'm looking forward to hearing your answer for this one. What would you say is your favourite curse word and why? And you can say it.
Really?
Yeah, of course you can.
Well, I say all sorts of words, you know, fuck, bollocks, tits, piss, fanny, nipples, shit, twat, cunt. When I was doing this show, and it was a charity show, and it was for the Lord Mayor's something or other. And on my website, I put, to simplify things, because I do different things, I put at the beginning, look, it says where I am and what I'm doing, and it'll say A after it, which means it's adult, right? Or it'll say F, which means it's, you can take up to 15, you know.
Okay, sure.
18 years, yeah, so it's not too big, family type stuff. I'm not going to be effing and blinding. So I put this charity show in, and on the night, loads of people were emailing me and all that, saying it's not adults, we've got kids in with it. And it was for MenCap, right? Right. So I'd had all this hassle about whether it's going to be adults, it's not going to be too blue and this, that, and the other and all that. So I'm about to go on stage, and I've had a lot of grief, and I'm waiting to go on, and there's glass doors with, doors with glass circular things we can see through, and the bloke's using my microphone, and he's going to hand me the mic through the glass doors, and I walk down the room then when my music's playing and get on the stage. Right, so I'm waiting to go on, and while I'm waiting to go on, this bloke comes up to me and he goes, "Excuse me, are you the comedian?" So I said, "Yes." He said, "You do realise it's there's kids in tonight." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, it says on your website it's going to be adult. I've heard a rumour that you're going to be adult and all that. And you just realise that there's people out there that aren't going to be and all that." This is about as literally a minute before I'm going to walk on. Right, so he's telling me, you know, what I can and can't do. So I said to him, as the man, compare bloke, stuck his hand out for me to walk through the doors and grab the microphone, I said to him, he was banging on about how blue it's going to be and there's kids and all that. I said to him, "Don't worry." I said, "The worst thing I say is cunt." And I left him to it. I left him to it. I didn't say that word on stage, but, you know, a swear word's a swear word, and I don't like that. Obviously, that word's not a word that I would ever use on stage. I think I was the last person in the world, comedian-wise, to say the F word on stage. And it took me a long, long time to say that. And in fact, I'm going the other way now. I'm trying to get away from all that, because it doesn't mean so much if you keep saying it all the time. It adds more meaning to it if it's used less.
My next question, I wanted to ask you your favourite music artist and what's your favourite album?
Well, I used to love Chris Rea, and I had loads of his stuff, The Road to Hell and all that sort of thing. And the Beatles, of course, we mentioned them earlier on, and it's still, every time I hear the Beatles, I'm a big fan of the Beatles. And then there was a new record come out by a relative of the Beatles, and it was all remixed. I can't remember the name of it, and I had that for ages, and I used to play it in my car.
Well, I think that was the Love album, wasn't it?
Love album.
Yeah.
Yes. And when I went to Vegas, they had a Cirque du Soleil one to the Love album, which honestly, it brought tears to my eyes. It was just so fantastic. Because I love the music for the start up, but what was going on, it was just amazing. Like I said, Dire Straits. Who else would I like? I like some of the old Eric Clapton stuff, and because I'm older now, there's not much of the. There isn't. I like the new stuff, but I can never remember the name of it. Because I'm not really paying attention now. And that sounds awful, doesn't it? It's because I'm old. I don't look like my photos anymore. Allotments are starting to look attractive. I can't pass one without dribbling, and I can't tell you where from.
Billy Pearce, what would you say is your greatest achievement to date?
I won the British Comedy Awards in the 90s, and at the time it was massive for me. And it's got my mantle shelf, and I've got only one room when I have stuff. I don't cover my house with photos and that. I just fill it up with coats and things like that.
That's the background.
The British Comedy Awards, and I beat Michael Barrymore, who was massive at the time, and Ken Dodd for the best live theatre performer. The best live theatre performer, me, beating them two. So that was a big thing. Singing in Hyde Park, that were good. What was the question again? What was my proudest thing?
Yeah, greatest achievement to date.
Well, funnily enough, I have done 3 Royal Commands and 5 Children's Royals, but none of them would spring to mind really on the scale of things. The Hyde Park thing was a tremendous thing for me. The lovely summer seasons that I've done, like I did one in the year 2000 when my son was born. And in that show in Blackpool, we had the Nolans, Kev Hawkins, John Inman, Jimmy Cricket, a full band, and about 8 dancers. You couldn't afford to put that show on now. And it was a happy show. All the happy days I've had touring with the wonderful people, the Roy Walkers, the Mark and Mark Walker. We have had some great times. I've just been lucky to, there isn't anybody that I would. Well, there's a couple of people that I haven't liked, not many though. There are a whole lot of them.
And then my final question, Billy Pearce, the final question.
I haven't answered one of them properly.
Is how do you wish to be remembered?
With a smile.
It's a nice answer, and a smile on your face to finish up with. I've really enjoyed the interview. Thanks for giving your time. And how do we find out more about yourself, Billy Pearce?
With great difficulty, mate. I'm a very secretive person. Just put my name in the thing, Ibijik.
I was going to ask, how do we find out about Panto season, any future performances, stand-up?
Yeah, well, I've got my own website, like Billy Pearce. If you just Google Billy Pearce, it all comes up. BillyPearce.com is my website. It's normally, there's all bits and bats. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and all the usual things,
Thank you kindly for sharing your life experience from growing up in the 1950s, your accident, becoming a performer. It's all been interesting, and your honesty. Thanks a lot, and I wish you all the very best with everything you do in the future.
Well, do you know what, mate? It's been a joy talking to you, love, and you've been very gentle with me. Thank you for that. And I wish you all the best as well, and in all you do. And I'm sure you've got a lot more to do and a lot more famous people than me to talk to.
No, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time.
They're bringing a new show out for me. It's called I'm a Minor Celebrity, Get Me In There. You know, when you go on telly, you've got to know everything backwards. Backwards, everything know to have you. Tell it on, go you win.
Hopefully they will. Thank you kindly. Thanks for everything this evening, and keep making everyone smile. Keep laughing.
That's what it's all about. Look, that's what it's all. We need that. It's very important to have that,
especially over the last couple of years as well. It's essential.
Yes, it's not good for anybody's head. I've been up and down like a prostitute's knickers, mate.
And what a note to end on, I think, on that note. Billy Pearce, thank you kindly. Thanks for being a guest on Your Take.
Happy days, sir. Thank you very much for asking me.